Hey guys, this is Devs at the Bar, and on this episode we have Dean, Sbpf Onk. So
Yeah.
we're going to be talking about.
1 year to Ankh status? Really, bro? Come on.
Dude, you've been writing code for so long and you're teaching, so I think it's good on you. It's good on you.
Fair enough.
So we have SBPFS. Oh God,
Yeah.
I'm stuttering.
They should probably.
But yeah, to start off, what made you decide to like pick this role, interview for this role at this company?
I saw a bunch of people who were like really hilarious on Twitter, doing a lot of really cool stuff, and I thought, you know what? I vibe with this culture. Um, so yeah, hopefully I'm a good enough developer. Hopefully I have a chance. I think I could really make a difference. That's my reasoning.
Okay, okay.
Nice,
We'll, we'll
nice,
see.
nice.
We'll
We'll
see if
see
you have
about that.
be in this company. But yeah, all jokes,
Okay.
everybody knows Dean. Dean goes by multiple names. The compiler
Yeah.
disrespector, SBPF, BPF onk, answers up. Do you have another title? Yeah, so many things. But for people who don't know you, can you like give a quick run through of who you are and your journey on Solana?
Sure. So I'm Dane. I'm originally from Australia. Lived in Asia for quite a few years. Uh, yeah, I was a Bitcoin developer from like 2017 onwards, and then I think I first touched Solana in like 2021, 2022, not exactly sure. And then I got into it very heavily at the end of 2022. Started teaching people, made a bunch of open source repos. Now I've got like over 120 open source repos with just like tools and contracts and stuff. And that's being used to teach roughly like 20% of the ecosystem. Brought in a lot of new devs, and then uh, co-founded Zeus Network, bringing Bitcoin onto Solana. I am also at the Jupiter Research Center, so I do all of their cryptography and support basically the development of their products and JupeNet. And most recently, co-founded Blueshift, which is my goal of Blueshift is pretty much two things, right? If you're a project trying to expand to Solana, we want to help you, and if you're a developer trying to build on Solana, we want to make it as easy as possible. We kind of use the former to fund the latter, and it's just purely about giving back and growing the pie. So yeah.
That's
Yeah.
pretty impressive.
Pretty impressive. I think one part that I would like to add is like Dean is actually leading the vanguard for writing contracts in ASM. So like I low-key call him masochist because Dean likes to do the hard stuff that I don't even know why. I saw you like a few days ago said you were writing a LLVM in Rust. Was that a twist you put out or you actually doing it?
Yeah, so I could go into it, but the
Yeah.
way that we pack binaries right now in Solana is just like really bad.
Okay.
We have like seven sections in the binary when it could be like three or four. And we have these things called like dynamic relocations, where it's like we have like we make a call to a string table, and then the string table goes to a relocation table, and the relocation table goes to like, oh, I actually wanted this syscall. So we've got all this like weird back and forth in the binary, right?
Yeah.
And the only challenge really to writing something better than like LLD, the linker, or LLVM for
Yeah.
translating assembly to like usable binaries is really like the layout of the binaries is overly complicated for no reason. And that's basically because we inherited a lot of bad stuff from our BPF. So yes, I am actually working on that. Like I have compiled binaries without using any of the ANSA tooling before. Another good friend of mine, Claire, she's also a compiler engineer and she's also working on this problem. It would be very great because it would allow us to just like write assembly in the browser or even in VS Code, and we'd be able to have like step debuggers and simulate line by line to view what happens to memory, and also be able to compile in, a fraction of maybe like a millisecond or two, because we would not have to load up this massive tool chain. I don't know what the internet's like over there, right? But like, you know, downloading a 2 GB uh, LLVM slash Rust slash all of these things just to compile your
Yeah.
like, 10 byte program or something
Yeah.
is not like super
Yeah.
reasonable.
Yeah. Yeah, cool stuff. Cool stuff. I always said like Dean always had insights that you would never see. Like if you're starting out from Solana, you almost never would see because because you've done almost everything, you have like bird's view. You know, like if something doesn't work, I typically would not know if it's my fault or if like from the answer engineer. Or I would know. I would typically just blame myself, or why am I not getting it right? But like you would typically have like an understanding, oh, this tooling is bad. This is, this could be improved, that could be improved. So yeah. I just wanted to like get clarity on that. That's actually a God level rewrites. Hopefully someday I get to contribute. Yeah.
If someone ever asks me, I I would think the RBPF repo by Quentin. I thought it was perfect. So you're the
Yeah.
first person to make me be aware of there that because of Solana
Mm.
faults, they are being like represented in
Yeah.
today. And that gives almost everybody else who is listening to this like an idea. If you can find like loopholes there and you can fix it, that like gives you an advantage of fixing it way back here. So
Yeah.
So
that's
actually, like, RBPF copied another library written in C, which I think is called QBPF, right?
great.
And
Yeah.
QBPF basically took the output of whatever, I think it was LLVM or whatever it did, and treated it as basically like this is the protocol of eBPF, right? And so
Yeah.
that means it added in all of this extra stuff that didn't need to be there.
Yeah.
And so basically like it's just like someone like 20, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago wrote some like inefficient code, then someone wrote a
Yeah.
C library to use it, and then someone wrote a Rust library from the C library, and then we forked the Rust library. And so now we're just replicating this like behavior that some
Yeah.
tooling like a long time
Yeah.
ago did, because every person who implemented it after the next guy kind of just did what the last guy did instead of like
Yeah.
stopping and going, wait, do we need to do that?
Yeah.
Like
So yeah.
okay, sorry, it all seems like a really big issue. Like, what's the best part to solving it? Because like everybody's distracted. We all have things we do during like the weekdays, and the people who are supposed to work on it are like maybe focusing on other thing. Like, what's the parts to actually solving it? Do you think you as a person is like you're sure you're really smart, but do you think you as a person can actually like get rid of all these problems?
Well, I think yeah, if I can be very honest, like it comes down to incentives, right? So like for me, like the way I see it, if I'm working on something, it's like I kind of have like two motivations, right? Like one motivation is like I'm making money and this is great, you know? That's obviously
Yeah.
we all have that motivation. We all need
Yeah.
that, right?
Yeah.
The other motivation is, you know what? Like I profit a lot. I get a lot out of this ecosystem, so I want to create value for it, right?
Yeah.
And I would say that like I'm very driven by both of those things, but I would say a lot of people, are more driven by money because maybe they're not at a place in their career where they have the luxury of thinking about the ecosystem over, like their bread, like.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I would say that's got to be the majority of people. But I bet you there's a
Yeah.
lot of people out there. There's a lot of people out there who do have like the right motivation, that do want to like work on cool projects. And I think, we should figure out how we can get them paid. And I think, it would be very cool to have like more than one answer, because like right now the way it works is like if there's a need in the ecosystem, Solana Foundation is probably going to be like the second people to know about it, right? The first is going to be some devs who are like actually really in the trenches, and then it's going to bubble up to probably Jacob Creech, but maybe one of the other dev roles. And then, the assumption is Anta's going to fix it, right? And I'm like, well,
Yeah.
we're bringing in all these devs, we're training all these people up. Like, why did it have to go to them? Like, if they're not even the people particularly like butting up against this problem, right? Like, like if you know, for example, with bytecode, like there's 150 people who have downloaded and used the VS Code extension now, right? And I think half of them are from Nigeria.
Oh wow, that's some insight. Yeah. Shout out to my
But
Nigerian
but
bros.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
But so like we're the ones actually writing bytecode and interfacing with it on like a sort of a deep level. So it's kind of like, hey, maybe one of us could try to take care of that or something. So I think
yeah,
instead of just assuming Ansa will fix it, Ansa will fix it, right?
yeah,
Like
yeah,
there's a lot of things that they do well, and there's some things that they do not so well. And I think it would be great if we didn't have this assumption, and if we had some way to incentivize people to, come and work on these problems. I think that'd be really dope.
yeah. I think
Well,
this is kind of like okay, okay. Like, sorry, this was kind of like segue because we had this conversation with this exact conversation with Josie, where it was more around how we needed to, like, most of the developer education was around like beginners, which moved to intermediate. But we also spoke on this particular topic, which is how do we really incentivize like open source development in the ecosystem, like really, really, because like many people just go on to like the high level clients and all of, but like the major problems are underneath the surface. You understand? Like, how do we make people interested? And we're talking about how this was like a two-way problem. Yeah, it's financial incentives. You need to get that right. You understand? But it's also like a social thing, which is something that you guys, especially you, Toli, KV, Alexandro, you guys kind of do well. You basically like socially validate like engineers that take on this hard stuff. Like if you're a kid and like
Yeah,
you're working on like say the bytecode, for instance, or you're working on something around the TPU, in Agave, you're not just like that kid. You're not just like the nerdy kid. You're the cool kid on the block. And that's one thing that you guys do well. You just like give them like a shout out.
yeah,
Oh, this is so cool. Yeah, you should really and basically when everybody sees it, they want to be the next person that have been like shouted out. So it's like some
yes,
form of social validation too. So like I feel like that is something that like even the engineers at Anza are actually like starting to like do well. I'm seeing a lot of like responses from like Brennan, from Alexandro most especially. Trends, in his typical trends fashion. So like just basically like just basically like socially validating, oh, what you're doing is cool, so keep doing it. That kind of like a pat on the
yeah,
shoulder. So like I think that part is pretty like we have good momentum on that side. I think the next one is how do we structure out like say like a grant program or like just the financial incentives to basically create these mini answers that group of guys can come together and like just solve problems that like probably answer doesn't have the time to solve, or just not like like just not high priority. Just these problems that are around the ecosystem that, yeah, low hanging fruits could really 10x or 3x the developer experience, or just the general like experience on Solana, or the general performance on Solana, but answer doesn't have the time because of everything that they have to do. Like, how do you think like these grant programs can start up to basically like, just create these mini answers? Like, yeah,
yeah. So, oh, did you have something, Carolyn?
yeah, yeah. Like an idea that came on the top of my head is like something like a
yeah,
list, a
okay,
list of basically problems
mm,
that people at the top level like didn't see, and people can actually engage with. And after
yeah,
they complete fixing this problem, which is possible solution, you have like let's say answer developers or some developers like Dean review, and
yeah,
after that review, there's possibly that's when you can actually like get payment or something. But now it's
yeah,
like two things: how to get the time of senior developers to review, and the second part is where does the funding actually come from?
yeah, exactly.
Well, yeah, I would just like to respond to your first point about social validation. So, like, that's something that I take like really seriously, and I'm glad that you have like picked up on the fact that I do that because the way I feel like the reason I give back to the ecosystem is because I benefit from it a lot, and I hope to keep benefiting from it for a long time. And so therefore I have to grow it because it can't just like stay where it is. It has to get bigger.
Yeah,
And so I do
yeah,
I do have like I do have some like at some level like some intertwined incentives with the growth of the ecosystem, right? But the whole thing with like that with Blue Shift, right, is it's not about like us being the hero. It's about us creating a platform where the dev comes in and the dev can basically acquire skills and whatever, and then the devs can give back, right? So like, for example, in the future, what we're going to do, right, is as when we've like rolled out kind of our initial set of courses, maybe there's like, 10, 20 courses, some are like junior, some are really advanced. What we'll start doing is we'll start running info sessions in the Discord because people who have like minted an NFT, right? We can NFT gate roles in the Discord. So we can look in the Discord and go, who's got this role? Who's graduated this thing, right? Hey, do you want to run an info session? There's some people who are struggling, right? And so we can
Yeah.
enable people to like run workshops. We shout them out on Twitter.
Yeah.
We help them grow their Twitter following, right? And that for me is like
Yeah.
really important. It's like giving, like there's a lot of devs that are like probably like pretty good, and they want to do something and they want to be seen, and like I'm like, yes, I
Yeah.
want you to do that, and I want you to be seen, and I want to create this sort of
Yeah.
like stage for you to perform on, you know what I mean, and give you the
Yeah.
ability to be
Yeah.
the hero, because like, to be honest, like it's like self-promoting myself is like not really useful at this point. I'm already like very busy, right? So it's like, okay,
Yeah.
let's get some other people to, replace me. You know what I mean? Like that's the
Yeah.
goal, is to
Yeah.
get, like bring all these people up, and
Yeah.
see them race to the top. And to be honest, I've seen it happen, maybe 5 or 6 times, where like these hot shots come in, they kick some ass, keep tweeting them out, totally notices, totally follows them, totally
Yeah.
starts retweeting them, and then their followers skyrocket.
Yeah.
So that to
Yeah.
me is like extremely important. We can't just have like, uh, oh, this guy is the hero dev of the ecosystem. Like, no, we need like
Yeah.
a whole like squad. We need to build like
Yeah. Yeah.
the Avengers. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
yeah, that's like just yeah, just responding to your first point. The second point, right, is like, yeah, you're talking about uh how do we get people like working on these interesting problems and funding it. I think if I could like sort of give my view of the current situation, right? There's like there's like Solana Foundation. They're like right in the mix. They're like right in the middle of everything. I think that they are, out of any like Solana organization, they're the most acutely aware of what people need from a developer perspective in terms of like libraries or tools or things like that, as well as commercialization needs. For example, this company needs to do this thing on Solana, so we need some way of that happening. And that's
Okay.
because they interface with the businesses and the devs and whatever. Like they have a great DevRel team, they have a great commercialization team in different verticals who talk to different companies who want to move to Solana or start building on Solana. But I would say on the technical side, they're perhaps not the best people for the job. They're not so well equipped to handle technical things. They're more good at handling people things, right? And then on the answer side, right, you got a whole bunch of very technical people who are very very talented and can build things, but they don't really talk to people from the ecosystem and engage with them and understand what they want or need. And then they just kind of like propose their own solutions to problems that maybe don't even exist, or, sometimes maybe they do exist, but no one had thought about it or whatever. But like, and so you've got like this disconnect. You've got like pretty good understanding what people need, pretty good capabilities, but for some reason, like we don't have any like crossover between those two orgs, right? Or not much. Now you do, like you said earlier, there are some people from ANSA who've started, reaching out to people and realizing that this conversation happens on Twitter, not Slack, and if we want to actually make people happy and get somewhere with building this ecosystem, we need to be yapping on Twitter, right? And you'll notice that like you've got yeah, Trent, Alessandro, Brennan, even like Joe, right? Like Joe is one of the most amazing people for
Yeah,
like
sure.
bridging the gap between
Yeah, yeah,
Ansa and devs. Like it's so hard to define like what his role is. He's like a tooling runtime DevRel connector of people, community contributor something guy. He just like crushes work and he's
yeah,
just really nice. But that's really important, right? Like building those bridges between people is like really really important. So I think the problem is there is a little bit of like an inherent like dysfunctional nature of how both of these organizations run, and it's not like anyone's trying to do a bad job or whatever. And in fact, like, to be honest, they're actually doing a very good job, because if they weren't, like, why is every other ecosystem only talking about one chain? You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah,
Right?
yeah,
So like it's not like things are absolutely terrible, it's the end of the world and whatever, right? It's just like these things happen, right? There's politics and there's organizational things that result in inefficiencies or whatever. And for me, I have this rather unique sort of position I'm in where I'm tight with the Solana Foundation people, I'm tight with the Ansa people, and I can sort of really see what's going on. And I guess I'm probably good enough to have an opinion on, 80% of these topics.
yeah,
And so, yeah, people have started to sort of take my opinion on board more seriously. And I think that's good, because it's good to take external feedback, but it'd be even better if they were listening to, even more people who know what they're doing. Because, I'm pretty good at on-chain programs, but there are people who are better than me at like, infrastructure or whatever.
yeah. That's such
I feel
like
you.
that was very insightful.
I feel like I relate to some of the points you made. It's like everyone is looking at it from different perspectives and they can't really like see the problem in a way. Sometimes like from what I've seen certain ecosystems like especially with dev tooling, they go out for what they want. Devs fix their own problems and that makes life easier for them. For example,
Absolutely.
the way Fibo went on with Pinocchio, he went for it, he gone for it, and okay, he got it. I've noticed a kind of trend where it's like we try to baby devs, and when you try to baby devs, that's when your program starts having like depths, and it's more difficult to like. Okay, it's easy to use for the beginner, but people who really want to like develop more like powerful programs can't really use it, and you're not like interacting with those people. You're interacting with like the first set of beginners.
Mm.
That's really crazy. Like getting a way to like bridge these two perspectives.
Yeah. Yeah, like it's the same thing where we kind of like were discussing because we talk about it a lot in the chat. Apparently, Wu and I and Ayo have a chat, so we always like talk about this stuff. So it's more like how do we take on harder stuff? You know, it's not like there's like an over like there's an abundance of how to get your first Solana program working. You know, we have like I'm not gonna lie, we have like 10 people doing videos on that particular topic. But how do we like get the inner workings of the Anchor macros, like all the macros that make Anchor what Anchor is? How do we, where are the classes on those kind of topics, you know? So basically,
Yeah.
so the young dev could basically now I understand what's going on behind the scenes with the macros in Anchor, right? I can now decide if this is optimal or that is optimal. But if they don't even really know what they're working with, they can't make those kind of decisions. Just like the way we have like skill issues with like the QBPF and everything. To us, it works, it logs, so it's fine, right? But like to somebody that like someone that like is really like has like a low level understanding of what they are working with, they can now make decisions as like, oh, okay, this doesn't work as well. Would have made it like 10x better or 2x better, you know. But like if we keep focusing on the layer of the beginner, like we won't really get to that part. And this is why I
Yeah.
said it was very insightful because like I'm very much on more like I'm more on the answer side than the Solana Foundation side. And this actually makes sense. You know, so like for the Solana Foundation, it typically will be more people, you know, than the answer engineers. I feel like I relate with the answer engineers because I'm like kind of like an engineer and I love like tinkering with like low level stuff. So to me, it's very natural. But that doesn't apply to everybody. You know, so like kind of like bridging the gap is where like we should all focus on. You know, basically, yeah. So like that was very insightful. So I think the segue question. I was gonna like was gonna I was gonna segue into this. So like now we have like the problem. The problem is the disconnect, right? So the bridge that we're talking about now, is it gonna be like okay, so what do we do? Do we kind of like do we advise foundation to take a back seat on like the development and let some of these other engineers that are more answer leaning take the role? Or what are we looking at there? Like what are your
Yeah, yeah. So I don't think I would tell anyone to take a back seat. I'd tell everyone to keep like building things, right? But like what I would say is like, what if there was like four or five different answers, very, very flat management structure. So there's no real like politics or whatever to deal with. It's not like my boss's boss doesn't like this idea, therefore I can't do it or whatever.
yeah
You have like very specific goals behind each of these. So like for example, let's say we just had like the on-chain program company, right? And to be honest, a lot of people could, go and start the on-chain program company.
yeah
And Solana Foundation says, hey, we've talked to a bunch of people and whatever. Like basically, actually, I would say start from get good technical counsel at Foundation so they can evaluate the merits of different proposals and different work, right? Like you said, it's very hard to get a senior engineer's time to like review code. That's very
yeah
true
yeah
because like we're always all already working on something. But if there's like some absolute like tech mastermind at Foundation who is able to like evaluate things, right? So that they can sort of have like a really good knowledge of like what it is they're funding and like what it's buying them. That'd be great. I also think they can be like less risk averse with funding. I mean, they have a very big war chest, and like if spending it results in something good happening, like at all, it's probably like worth the spend. But
yeah
so I say like start from there, right? Start from like knowing how to like actually understand the merits of what you're funding. So you're not just kind of like, oh, I just trust this organization and give them money, right? That's obviously difficult to make such a change because there's some very long-standing relationships there. But I think that would be very good. That'd be very positive. So then, yes, the first thing is that. Second thing is, say you have like the answer of on-chain programs. Say you have the answer of, I don't know, open source RPC. Say you have like the answer of dev tooling, right? Or the answer of compilers, right? These you basically you can have these sort of smaller organizations where you can individually evaluate how they're performing and whether they need more funding, whether they need more hiring, whatever. And there's no like manager sort of thing. And if anyone has a problem with anything, they know exactly who to talk to. And you just make it a requirement, like you have to talk to the community, you have to be available. And also, like, I think that as a part of their grants, like, I guess Solana Foundation should have consider how much they value community contributions, right? Because like right now, like part of the wicked problem right now is like Foundation cuts a grant to Anza to hire a bunch of devs to like go and do all the Solana things, to some extent, like it's a little bit opaque. It's not opaque to the point that they don't know exactly what's going on, but it's kind of like um it's kind of just this assumption, we give you this money and go and do all the Solana things, right? I think it'd be if like the community were involved. But yeah, but what so then we've got this problem of like a senior dev, like let's say someone like KV comes along. I don't know like what this guy's time is worth, but I mean I would say like given the nature of his company or whatever, right? I'd say if you hired him as a contractor, you're talking probably like at least a few couple of hundred an hour, at least maybe 1,000. Like that's what a guy like that costs, right? He's like top G, top of his game, that kind of guy. And he goes and he makes a really good open source commit. And then it doesn't get merged, and then it gets reviewed by people who kind of maybe don't even know as much as him about a topic, right? And then it just kind of sits there in a graveyard of PRs, and it's up to him. Like, does he want to go and play this political game and push it or whatever, right? And there's kind of a very good reason why this happens, which is for every KV, there's probably like, you know, 100, or I don't know what the ratio is, maybe 1,000 people who just like PR random stuff that like nobody knows like who they are. It's probably not that useful or that good, right? And so there's kind of like there's no one at Anza whose job it is to care about this, and everyone at Anza is also a very good developer, like KV, like the at least the senior
Yeah,
people, the like the people who are sort of, like the Alessandros or the Brennans of this world, right? Like they're already busy, they're already working on something, their salaries are probably not cheap, right? And it's like, is it a good use of funds to say, hey, guy who's already busy and being productive doing something useful, get away from your work, check GitHub, go through these 10 PRs, see if they're any good, and prioritize merging this. Is that a good use of time or resources for Anza? Well,
yeah,
probably not. It's not gonna make Anza more money, right? It's not going
yeah,
to necessarily be a good investment. And so then from the foundation side, it's like, well, do we value being an open source project? If the answer is yes, maybe what they could do is make this a mandate or put funding behind this for ANSA, right? Or for whoever is like the grant recipient or whatever for doing any of this like development work for like the validator or the on-chain programs or the libraries or whatever, right? So it kind of like the problem, it makes sense why this happens because there's no one whose job it is to do that. And these people are expensive and they're busy and there's
yeah,
no incentive model from here to sort of say like you must do that.
yeah.
Yeah. Does that make
Yeah, I
sense?
think that's yeah, it
I
makes
think
so
so.
much sense because yeah, I think for one thing, if I'm going to take it away from this conversation, is going to be that flattening structure. Because if we have teams or like group of people that just focus on specific components of the network, and then they are like the people that anybody should go to when you're talking about that particular subject matter, rather than making the entire objective answers business. You just have these specialized teams that focus on certain things, so that, like they can take enough work from like answer. That totally makes sense. And I think that was like the idea that Perry and I had when we're creating. So we created something called Asylum. It's like a chat. So what we do is that we just basically do like just like a wannabe crackheads, so we just go and do some crack stuff, in the ecosystem and internally validate ourselves. Because prior to that, we weren't really there wasn't really any social validation for us, coming into you're just the devs, you guys do dev stuff, as long as it didn't make money, it wasn't making noise, that kind of stuff. So we just basically found ourselves, me, Perilyn, Wu, and Ayo were in the chat. And then the whole original idea was to do something around dev tooling and the RPC. So this makes a lot of sense for us. Like if we
Yeah.
if we can basically be the kind of team that just takes a particular component and say, okay, we want to be the one that champions this particular stack in the network, and then be the go-to people whenever anybody has any subject matter. Rather than just like deferring to Anza, who might not necessarily be focusing on that as like high priority, because Anchor will always be Anza will always be focusing on like the core. RPC is not core, Defton is not core, and yeah, as you said, it's not a good call like use of the resources that the foundation is like paying,
Exactly.
Solana is paying. We can have all this like flattened team structure to basically like focus on these particular stacks, and then the entire community can defer to these people rather than like always deferring to answer like for all of this or taking responsibility for this particulars. It makes total sense. Apparently, if we're gonna highlight this has to be like the highlight of the conversation.
Yeah, yeah. And honestly, the way I see this is more of like the
Yeah,
rebel route. It's like the route of not depending on anyone else, but it's like individual teams
yeah,
getting this
yeah,
done. And I think we just need one team to do this. We just need like a group of people to do this. And if everyone sees that, oh, this is possible, it's doable.
yeah,
But
yeah.
then again, I see certain challenges in being able to do this. For example, now me,
Okay.
FX, and Wu, we have so
Yeah,
many ideas. But it gets to a point where skill issues, so
yeah.
many skill issues.
Skill issues.
So
Yeah,
that's why I see potentially dev education becomes very important in the like in the role rebellion. It's
yeah.
like right now, Blue Shift now is going with okay, let's say program developers. Do you think like there's a future where you guys are going to like educate people on validator level things and all that?
Yeah, so honestly, like, that's not really our strength, but we want it to be at some point. So the reason why we focus on chain programs, right, is because if we were to focus on anything else, there's too much red tape. when it comes to on-chain programs, nobody can stop us from making better bytecode, right?
Yeah.
They, they can try, but like unfortunately, like if I can deploy it, you can't stop me from doing anything.
Yeah.
That's why I've put like a big focus on, like, for example, building all of the assembly tooling, because like all the off the shelf tooling from Anza is like not very good.
Yeah.
I knew that things would go in that direction at some point, that like that people would want to optimize down to the last CU. I would actually just have to give like a huge shout out to KV. I would say that he is basically like the father of extreme Solana program optimization. And he's a really busy guy. Sometimes he shows up again and does something fucking crazy, and then he disappears and gets back to work. And
Yeah.
but mad respect for that guy. My goal has basically been to do for assembly what he did for Rust, starting from, a year or two ago, like releasing, I don't know, no standard entry point and no standard
Yeah.
invoke and things like that, right? These are really just like fundamentally huge breakthroughs in terms of like moving away from Solana program and inspiring like Pinocchio and things like that. It's all like his influence, right? So I was trying to
Yeah.
handle it from the bytecode perspective of let's fix things in assembly. He was trying to handling it from let's fix things in Rust. He was telling me he doesn't like assembly. Eventually, he ended up writing assembly because I think he came to the same conclusion I did.
Yeah.
And a lot of compiler people are like, "Well, why do you write assembly instead of fixing the compiler?" It's like, well, if I write a PR to the compiler, is it going to get merged? And like, what do I get out of that? And where is my
Mm.
payoff here, right? Like
Yeah.
I can write assembly and I can deploy assembly to production today, and it works and it saves to use, and it's extremely good marketing for me
Yeah.
because people are interested in like, oh, how do we do that, right? So I think, and if people don't understand the bytecode, like how are we going to optimize the bytecode that a compiler produces, right? If we don't show like, hey, here's how humans beat the machine, then like if we don't
Yeah.
show that, like how's the machine going to get better? So yeah,
And that does make a lot of sense.
yeah. So that's why we do on-chain programs. But the whole point of Blue Shift was basically like, previously I was teaching, right? And I noticed that like 90% of my teaching, maybe 95, is like teaching new devs how to CPI the token program, you know? And
Yeah.
like that's the unfortunate reality, right? It's
Yeah.
like that's like 90% of the job. It's not that hard. It's just like,
Yeah.
hey, download Anchor, okay, make some logic, okay, CPI the token program. That's basically it, right? That's how you make an escrow, that's how you make an AMM, that's how you make a launch pad, whatever, right? I felt like teaching people how to CPI the token program, although it's not below me to do that, it's not a great use of my time. The reason it's not a great use of my time is because I've probably trained 1,000 or so people who could do that, right? I felt like I should be focusing on like uh, teaching the things that only I can do, right? So like I want to get into cryptography. I want to get everyone writing CK. I want to get everyone, understanding just all the crazy shit that we can do with this VM. That there's like all these repos on my GitHub. I'm sure you guys have like looked through them, and it's like, what does this one do? What does this one do? Right? I can write the
The
code very
curriculum.
quickly. Very yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
I
The
know which
curriculum.
tweet you're referencing. Anyway, but like I can do all that stuff, right? It's like the repo maybe takes a day. Unpack it all for people in a way that they can understand, and it's accessible and whatever. That takes a lot longer, right? To document things, make sure that people have the prerequisite background knowledge and whatever, right? Because knowledge is like a tree. You can't just be like, here's a leaf, right? You got to be like, no, at least like here's a branch, right?
Yeah.
The repo is like that leaf at the end. Maybe it's the fruit, right? The fruit at the end of the
Yeah.
branch, right?
Yeah.
And that's like the valuable
Yeah.
thing. But if you don't give them like the whole branch, that fruit's not going to grow for them, right? So
Yeah.
that's the whole point of Blue Shift, is to be able to basically continue to shift the curve to the right. Like no matter where you start, we're shifting it to the right. And so when I do teach some classes for Blue Shift eventually, like after we get past our initial product rollout, It's going to be really difficult advanced things that like, only I can do, only I can teach. And that's going to be for like, intermediate to advanced devs. And that's going to fill that gap that kind of right now there's a huge gap there. There's a lot of people who are really hungry for this sort of thing. So that's kind of the goal, man. Like, get the basics out, get the intermediate stuff out, do like, at least 10x better than what's already there, and then start working with people who are really hungry to do like the really advanced stuff. And then, eventually the advanced stuff becomes intermediate because everyone knows what they're doing. We make that into a blue shift lesson. We just keep moving, just keep things,
Yeah,
moving
yeah,
along.
I think
yeah.
I
Super
think
cool
that's
stuff.
like it's really impressive what you guys are doing because like there are a lot of people who at some point they just give up like on the ladder
Yeah.
because there's no path for them to actually move on in terms of knowledge and in terms of skill nobody's actually interested in funding like the real problems. So it's like really impressive what you guys are like doing at Blue Shift. Like it's
Yeah,
really beautiful. Besides the teaching, you're also encouraging people to like solve problems in the real world.
yeah. I think
Yeah, I think it's
with
really,
yeah, yeah. Sorry,
oh,
like I was
it's
gonna
good.
say, I was gonna say, without blue shifts and like Perlin and Wu, I don't think I would have ever had a reason to write ASM. Like the only reason why I know ASM now, like literally, he knows what I'm saying. The only reason why I would ever write assembly in the year 2025 is because of you guys. Like it's just that it was just
Like
a cool wind, So like
it was
obviously those kind of stuff. Definitely that you see the reason, I would never have picked up like ASM ever for because I don't really like at my day job, I don't really need to optimize any CUs, it's not a big problem. So like why am I doing it? I'm doing it because my friends are doing it and like they're doing it because Dean is doing it. So like definitely that's just super cool stuff. Apparently you want to say something or I interrupted you, Dean. Yeah.
and I think that's how the ecosystem grows because you get
Yeah.
like since people have more knowledge, they see particular programs that are working and they're like, we can make this better. So we don't need
Yeah.
to wait for someone at answer to fix like major problems. Like if the knowledge
Yeah.
is so accessible to everybody, we can like solve our own problems way
Yeah.
Yeah.
easier.
Yeah.
And
And I think
that's the thing, right?
yeah, sorry.
If you
Yeah.
want an ecosystem to decentralize, that's what you have to do, right? If you don't want it to just be like this one company tells you this is what the protocol is or this is what the tooling is, that's what you got to do. You got to make devs independent. You got to fix these more difficult sort of like, I guess it's kind of like social slash community problems, right? Of like how do we coordinate people? How do we bring people together? How do we distribute knowledge? How do we make it so that devs can be self-sufficient, Um,
Yeah.
I would guarantee that, like within the next 12 months, if it's not myself or Claire, that someone else will like open source a completely independent compiler that can compile binaries without any ANSA tooling whatsoever. Like, I think only myself and Claire so far have done this. I guess you could also say the FireDancer team, maybe. I'm not sure if they've done that or not, but I'm pretty sure that they'd be capable. So like I think that's really important. And yeah, like a lot of people like to shit on assembly and be like, why would you write assembly? It's dangerous, it's hard to read, blah blah blah. It's like, well, if everyone could read assembly, then like that stops being true. And if people don't read assembly, they don't know what the compiler is doing. So how do we fix the compiler? If we don't like get people to understand these things, then no one's going to understand it, and it's just going to be a black box.
Yeah.
And what we do for on-chain programs, at some point it would be really cool to do that for like validator software or things like that, to be able to sort of show people like, hey, here's how you do a vote program mod or something like that, like things where it comes to like running validators, optimizing for profitability or scalability or performance or things like that. I mean, like I said, this is not really my area of expertise.
Yeah. Yeah.
It will become my area of expertise when I start running nodes and stuff like that, and that is in the pipeline. But yeah, if we
Yeah.
can do that, then we can cover all sorts of things. We can teach people about compilers. We can teach people about validator software, networking, all that. But the main thing, right, is like it's not about like what can I do or what is my expertise, right? That's just I have this expertise and this is what I'm doing right now with my team of devs who are really great. and hopefully with some of you guys too, as like the community joins in, because we're going to be open sourcing our entire front end and, basically translating with community
Yeah.
partners into different languages and all this stuff, right? But people like, for example, like Alessandro, he is actually like very willing to teach people like how to do stuff. The problem is like he needs a platform. He's not going to go and start Blue Shift. You know what I mean? So what we need to do is like
Yeah.
make the
Yeah.
platform where other people can come in and like be the hero, right? And train up other people who can then come in and be the hero and sort of get this flywheel effect going, right? So you get a good platform that
Yeah.
works, you get cracked devs in there that are not going to be like wasting time. And then, they run the next cycle. They pay it forward, and so that's how things like improve sort of exponentially.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
that's that's amazing. That's totally amazing. Like that's Loki like the reason why we have the discussion of devs at the back. We'll basically bring like really crack devs to like come explain particular things that okay them themselves won't like have the time to teach. We're giving them a platform. So like Blue Shift like doing that and just having it there forever that any Solana dev can just learn from is amazing.
Yeah.
And FX, if you have another question, I'm thinking of like throwing a question of like a problem wish list. So like
Okay.
any like Dean, like any problem from any side of Solana, maybe something
Yeah.
Anza is ignoring in the compiler, whatever. Like if you could like let's say just name as many problems as you can, so that okay, any random developer who is out there who's cracked enough to take it or believes they can handle the challenge, they should just go for it. Something like that. So like name as many problems as you can.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I have like actually a list that I've written. Okay, I would say delete all the precompiles, add the appropriate syscalls to replace them, delete durable nonces, delete lookup tables, increase TX size, improve multi-threading, implement direct mapping. Some of the ABI, well, V2, V3, whatever you want to call it, changes. So basically getting rid of dynamic relocations, making syscalls static, packing smaller binaries that don't include all of the section header entries and are just like very efficiently placed, like in terms of how they're linked. Remove the RPC from the node entirely. So basically let people like Triton and Helios and whoever who are actually good at RPC do all the RPC stuff. Don't put it in the node software. Make it
Yeah.
very easy for someone who wants to make that better to just come along and do it. We don't need that to be an answer project. I think we need more community people who actually use it daily to do that. I think we should remove the CLI from the node. It has just got so much crap in it. Like it's got like support for some hardware wallet that no one's heard of for 5 years or something, and it's just nah. Get rid of it. The CLI is not very good. There are better CLIs in other ecosystems that we can take inspiration from. And that's something that it doesn't affect anyone. Like if a dev wanted to come in and make a better CLI, right? Like if it's a part of the mono repo, everyone uses it. But if it's not and someone makes something better, everyone will use the better thing, right? Um, switch the
Yeah.
in the validator, switch accounts DB to RocksDB. This will make it infinitely easier to use and scale and whatever. You can hire RocksDB engineers very easily, and you get read replications and all sorts of really good things. It would just be a major upgrade. Switch from Bigtable to ClickHouse. Yeah, that's kind of like my current sort of small wish list of things. I think if we could do a lot of those, like yeah, Solana will get a lot faster and be a lot easier. It'd be a lot easier to work on the node software because we break it down into smaller pieces, and it wouldn't be so high stakes for someone to submit a PR to some of these, like RPC or CLI or whatever tooling projects, or make
Yeah.
their own. So, yeah.
Honestly, like thank you so much. Thank you so much. Honestly, to me, I feel like we have this unofficial roadmap that's like collectively we were aiming there, but no one talks about it. Like for example, they're like tearing apart the code base to like make it more modular that people could do other things. And the other problems that okay people are solving, but we don't really say it that okay, this is the target. It's typically going to be like App Glow coming up, okay, that part's faster. So this is pretty interesting. Honestly, I like it. And I also wanted to ask about I remember we've had a conversation about instruction explosion, and I remember Claire said something about a good part of it was like panic handling. that's like add a way of like increasing the bloat to instructions like in the L file. So I was talking to Alexandra about it. Like, okay, is it that we make, for example, like some syscalls utilities that can like help with panic handling? And he was like, no, it's not just about syscalls, it's about Rust itself, it's about STD formats that we have to find a way to format that better. And it's all pretty crazy. Like the funny thing, basically, like my life for the last 2 months, I think of a problem. I try to solve it. I typically ask Alexander, ask someone. Then I find out my skill, like I'm not at that level to be able to solve it. The same thing you said about the RPC. Like FX has been telling me about this since like 3 months. Like before Ilios made the announcement about, oh, they are going to split the RPC from the validator. He already thought about that. Like he already thought about that. But now there's this friction of, okay, there's their ideas on how to make the protocol better, but there's a matter of skills. Like, what do you
Yeah.
think about that? What do you think about everyone who's solving that skill issue problem?
Well, like, what alternative do you think there is for you to improve as a dev? Is there a better way?
I don't think so. I think you need to go through it.
Exactly. So what you need is like you need to have probably like I'd say there's like probably like three things that you need, right? You need like a problem, some kind of motivation to solve it, and then probably like some kind of like guidance, right? It's like
Yeah.
if the problem is too easy, it's boring, someone's probably already solved it. If the problem is too hard, you hit a wall and you give up, right? So there's this
Yeah.
really nice sweet spot. There's this really nice sweet spot where it's like it's a hard enough problem that someone who's good at what they're doing would think it's a good idea to solve, but they haven't solved it yet. And you're like probably not quite good enough yet, but you have access to this person, right? And you
Yeah.
have the branch, right? And now it's time to like bear the fruit. You know what I mean? Like, because
Yeah.
knowledge is like a tree, right? So
Yeah.
it's like if you can find that sort of problem, that's where you as a dev are going to grow a lot, like a lot.
Yeah.
And you're going to go from like a guy who can at least understand the problem space to the best guy to like solve that problem,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so when it comes to like problems like this, like it's the same thing as like what I said before. I started Blue Shift to basically be able to scale up my time. So I'm not teaching devs how to CPI the token program. Like I would love to, I still do, but I try to not make that the majority of my time because I can do better things for more
Yeah.
advanced devs and have greater impact that way, right? Well, it's the same thing with like Alessandro. He is honestly one of the most like remarkably like knowledgeable, talented developers when it comes to the exact like intersection of like Rust, eBPF, performance, profiling, all that stuff, right? He is the guy. And he's a very busy guy. And it's probably not a good use of his time to sort of, help people do all this like really like entry level stuff. And so we need to do is like create the platform where people like that can come in and contribute to the ecosystem, and the ecosystem takes what they do and like they amplify it, right? So we can see what's happened with assembly, we can see what's
Yeah.
happened with Rust optimization, right? So like that's kind of the goals here, right? Like we got to get
Yeah.
these people to like who are motivated to solve these problems, connected with the right people to like carry it forward, and then we need to sort of distribute that information across the ecosystem and get other people interested and involved and whatever. Like, you know what, man? Like, I love being the guy to solve a difficult problem. And then I put it on GitHub and I tweet it out and I'm like, yeah, look, I'm so great. I did
Yeah.
it, right? But you know what's
Yeah.
like even cooler is like now I can just tweet about problems and then people will actually go and like try to solve them. And then when they get stuck, I can be
Yeah.
that guy and be like, hey man, you're close. You're close. You just got to do this. No,
Yeah.
like imagine there's like, you know 30, 40 such wise old unks who can play that role, right? And imagine
Yeah.
there's 10,000 devs or whatever. Like that's what we got to do. So
Yeah.
I love
Yeah. Like that.
I love
I love
how you're
how you,
just coming back to Blue Shift and it's making sense. It's like
yeah.
you said them before, you're just saying them in better ways. It makes so much sense. Sorry, FX, go on.
Yeah, so like I was gonna say, yeah, like totally makes sense. Because even with like with what Dean was saying, like with sometimes you just have to do it, like solving your skill issue. Sometimes you just have to do it. And I think that was like kind of like the biggest motivation for like even like my iPhone Globe repo I did like a few days back. That the paper didn't just get into my head. I read that shit like no less than 3 times. I read Brennan's podcast while working, while stepping out to the supermarket to like get stuff. It didn't just what the hell is two faults in Byzantine, So I had to go in and literally read the paper and like implement voter rotor by myself. You understand? For oh okay, this is what it does, this is what that does. And I think that's what like we're trying to translate even to the RPC because we kind of have an idea of how to kind of split it. It's all in the geyser to extend the geyser, put the information from the geyser instead of the bank. But then you really need to understand what exactly the geyser does. And even if that method is going to be the best method, it's not just like, oh, because Alexandra said to do it this way, or the fire dancer team are doing this way, or like you just really, really understand what exactly this component does and then you can basically work with that idea or create your own. So everything comes down with like the understanding. And to be honest, there isn't really any like low level docs or documentation for the geyser. You have to look into the code. You have to go into the code, tinker it with like with your like by yourself to kind of like understand what exactly is going on there. At the end of the day, yes, it's very, very true. You need to solve your skill issues, you do need to do the hard stuff. You need to do the uncertain stuff. And the beauty is when you actually figure stuff out. Because I know how I felt when I finally understood this stuff, from the Go paper. I felt, oh, okay, this is what. There's a euphoria that hits when you finally understand exactly what this particular thing is doing. So yeah, I really fuck with that. That's really like good advice. Yeah, that's really good advice.
That's the way, bro.
Uh,
That's the way.
yeah. Caroline, anything to say before we round up? Uh, we're almost hitting like an hour.
Like everything we're saying is just rounding back to education and in the community of self-motivated developers. And it's exciting, honestly. This is the future we're building. I think it's very exciting. Like there are so many devs that just quit at some point because of they want to like go deeper and deeper, but it's like the path is uncertain and they just go with the easy thing that's just there. So it's really nice. It's really nice that we're doing this.
Yeah.
So since I don't think there's any question at the top of my or FX Ed. Um I forgot your name for a minute. Bad memory. So
Dean.
Dave, is there anything you want to just say? Anything you want to like talk about? We've been asking you questions like go
Yeah,
off.
yeah. So like, hey, why don't I ask you guys a question?
Okay.
Yeah, sure.
What do you want me to do?
Well, that's a blank check.
Yeah, the education part is good. Like when you started, like if you notice, like there's someone who is always saying when assembly, when assembly on blue shift. The person with that skill issue is me. But honestly, from your what you say, you first have to like satisfy like people who are like let's say fresh out of things. So that's why currently you have things on Anchor Pinocchio. So honestly, what I want from you is what you're already doing. Everything you know, just put it on paper, just put it in a way that everybody else can get. And I think that's good enough. And also the
Yeah, so
social
we actually have
Yeah.
we have two assembly classes in the pipeline, and the blocker on that is we're trying to make the tooling better so that anyone who doesn't already know how to use it is going to be able to come in and just like make use of it. So that's the only blocker. But the lessons are done. We have an introduction to assembly, so you can go and learn the entire opcodes and everything. And we have two challenges ready to go. So we're just improving the dev tooling a little bit, and that will be out hopefully by the time this episode drops. But yeah, I definitely agree with you.
FX. How about you?
I think to a large extent, I just want to like maybe if Dean steps out from like cryptography and like uh compilers for a bit, maybe, I'm not saying that you should, but like if you probably just, play around with the other components in the stack, You know,
Like,
we can get like some dim lights shining on top of some of this stuff. You know, probably would help a lot of us really focus on like okay, how to make stuff better rather than you reusing the same technical depth, you know. We already have like that kind of we have that focus on the compiler, you know, and the tooling, but like if we can get it on the other stuff, you know, probably that would be like you know, that's something I would love to see.
Yeah, definitely. I think, once those things are broken out from the node software, then it becomes permissionless, right? Because you don't
Yeah,
you don't have to basically maintain a fork of Agave. You've got your own independent tooling and you
yeah,
can innovate without anyone telling you what you can or can't do, right? And so
yeah,
I would say that for me that's an important component of enabling us to drive that forward.
yeah.
And when I do take that leap, FX, I might need you to teach me, how to do RPC or whatever, because you'll probably be better
Oh
than me
my,
by then. I mean,
oh
like,
my God. Oh my God.
no, but like for real, that's for real, that's for real, right? But yeah, I think the reason why like I don't focus on those things is just like two things. One thing is like on-chain programs, no one can stop me from doing that. It's open market, for anyone. That's the first thing, and the second thing is like, I actually think like Anza, Firedancer, whoever have done a lot to unlock performance, but it's not going to be realized unless we make the on-chain programs more efficient.
Yeah,
So I feel like I'm playing a complementary role to the performance gains that they're unlocking there in a way that nobody can stop me from doing that. As soon as we break
yeah,
out RPC, CLI, whatever from the node, then it's game on. We can do better on those things. Maybe it looks like a blue shift course, or maybe it looks like we have some community calls like this. We get a bunch of crack devs in the room and we just like kick some ass and do some cool stuff together.
yeah, yeah,
But yeah, I definitely agree with you. That'd be super cool to take on all parts of the stack. It's just, what is the most high impact for us right now? I think it's saving CUs.
yeah.
But yeah, I definitely agree. And from you guys' perspective, like, how do you think because you guys deal with like probably more like new devs coming in and stuff as well. Like, how do you think it feels for them now, like trying to like find their place in the ecosystem, and how can we sort of do more to promote those people and help them feel like they belong and they stick around?
well,
Yeah.
for me, when I like because like I don't know, I like sharing knowledge, like small thing I know, I share it with people. There are two traits I found like most beginners like deal with, or like two parts they take. There's the first type of beginner who sees the problems in the ecosystem and they're like, why are there so many problems? I'm going to nag about the problems. Like, these problems are not my business. Like, problems. This is such a terrible ecosystem. Blah 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 blah. You have the second guys who are like, okay, you have problems here. How can I help? Like, okay, from okay a higher perspective, you might see that their impact isn't that much, but just like writing a simple article on a particular thing is enough. Like, I remember when I first got into the ecosystem, I used to read Leo's article. I like
He's such a great author. It's so
exactly.
funny.
Yeah.
He's Italian, right? But he is our editor in chief, right?
Yeah.
He is the main editor of everything. It's like we have three native English speakers and one Italian, and the Italian is the editor in chief, right? My job is curator. So basically I'm like, what do we want to add? And he's the
Yeah.
guy who does all the writing and he's super good at it.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Is amazing, and it's honestly like it's that simple. How you're coming into an ecosystem, you see problems and you try to solve them. Those are my favorite type of people, and they are in the ecosystem, and they do make mistakes, but they do learn from it. And I think just like encouraging and interacting with them is just it's basically enough because of I remember there's this guy, Uber. I can't pronounce his full name. Like, there was a day I just like I saw a mistake in the Solana developers repo, one of the repos, the program examples. I saw like a problem there, and to me, like fixing it was like I don't want to say waste of my time, but like I felt I could have been doing better things. And I posted it, and he was like, sure, he could do it. And he just like asked me when he got stuck, and he just did it. So Honestly, those type of people, if we can just encourage them more, I think that's enough. The people who want to complain, let them complain. But the people who want to solve, let them solve.
Yeah, let
So
us hold.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Totally
I
agree.
think I think my perspective is kind of like on the flip side, which is like when I was joining Solana like 2022, 2023, there wasn't a lot of this stuff. I had to learn Rust in one of the in one of the toughest environments. There wasn't a blue shift, there wasn't Turbine, there wasn't Solana boot camps. All you just had was like a random video or Metaplex that probably was outdated. And then I was in the like the open book Discord because I was jamming with the open book guys back in the day. And it was just like, it was very confusing. Meta Prophet was kind of like it was very helpful at the time. He was just helping me out with like, pointing me, oh, this is how co-op, this is what co-option does, this is what a system program looks like, just those kind of stuff. So now we have all of this, there are more people that can basically like you can reach out to and talk about these problems and they would like respond to you. But like I think my perspective is now the ceiling for what you can do as a programmer is no longer just like on-chain programs. Back in the day, it used to be, oh, once you know how to write on-chain programs in Anchor, you're Gucci. But now like devs are setting like higher standard. Like it's not just enough to understand programs. You need to understand how to optimize the CUs for these programs. And even when you start writing programs, you will start having like clearer insight into how the entire chain works and then finding your own particular stack or components to just go and jam with like a group of people and focus on just that's your thing. So like I think the perspective now is that like on Solana, we are building like an earnest community of devs that just want to do hard stuff. And it's not just Solana hard stuff, like stuff that just literally cracked like technically across board. It's not just like two blockchains. Some people are going to do some parts in the networking stack. Some are going to do runtimes. Some are going to do like the compiler. Just so like we're just building like an ecosystem of like people that just want to do very hard things, and then we're rewarding people that do these hard things. And I think that like, we should just keep at it. I think the perspective is just basically like, how do we max out on this? Like this particular trajectory that we're going on. How do we max out this? To make sure that when people come into the ecosystem, we don't get them on that particular level that everybody just stays on, which is I know how to write on-chain programs. They just see the on-chain program as like like a fleeting level in their journey. So it's just another level. Okay, accelerate, so that kind of stuff. So I think that's just basically it.
Hell yeah.
Um, yeah, yeah. So like we already love the stuff that we're doing. We love doing this hard stuff. But like, how do we make the environment better so that any engineer that's looking outwardly, into the ecosystem would like, oh, I want to be like this. I want to be the next person that does that. So yeah, that's kind of like my perspective on.
Yeah, absolutely. I do feel right. Like yeah, both like really great perspectives, and I do share your opinions. I think like so for me, like I think yeah, building community is really important, right? So like obviously there's initiatives like there's like Super Team, right? And there's like, like different like Discord channels and stuff. Like, we started a Discord channel. We're hoping to sort of build out our community as well, not as like a not in competition or anything, but just like, hey, if you want to come hang out with crack devs and do cool stuff, you know,
Yeah,
our community welcomes you.
yeah,
But there's also like a huge importance of like regional communities, like, shout out to all the super teams and, Solar and all these people who are sort of bringing regional partnerships and stuff like that and just like getting people together in one place. I think and
yeah,
also like hacker houses. Hacker houses for me have been super great for bringing people together as well. But yeah, I think my perspective, right, is like you need like capable leaders to sort of bring things forward, So like to
yeah.
some
All
extent,
right.
right, like if the people who are teaching education or whatever, right, like if their max level is like they're slightly better than the guy who can make an anchor escrow or something, then that's kind of like where it stops, right? So I do
Yeah,
think like from my perspective, I've sort of kind of tapped out most of what you can do with Anchor. There's probably a few more things that I could do. And the main reason why I still write it is usually for like there's clients coming in from the EVM ecosystem. They don't know much about Solana. It's just going to be the easiest thing for me to give them to like, operate by themselves, and auditing costs will be lower and whatnot, right? So that's the main reason why I write it these days, or to like maybe really quickly prototype something where I don't want to write tests or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
But what we need is like people to keep pushing the envelope, right? Keep like bringing things forward, and then so it's like knowledge improves by this much, right? And then we need to then close this gap. So we need to like keep
Yeah.
creating this gap and then closing the
Yeah.
gap.
Closing it.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and super exciting, and honestly, like for me, super inspiring to see people like yourselves just like come up and just like kick some ass. It's really really awesome to see. So yeah,
Yeah. Appreciate
And
it, Dean.
I think I want to like add to like every other dev who's like junior, like me, or intermediate, is that generally don't be scared. Don't be scared to fail. I feel like a lot of people are
yeah,
just,
yeah, yeah,
and being scared to fail. It's not just on the technical side. It's also the should I say marketing side. Speaking for yourself. Like some people are really good. They just don't know how to talk, and they think that they will forever be in that bubble, and they are not afraid to like burst out of it. So for me, like regardless of what you're doing, just like I'm not sure if I can say the F word on YouTube, but Fafo. Ah, you know what I mean. But yeah, basically, like, just go about it. Who cares if you are seen as an idiot? For me personally,
Mm.
I don't mind being seen as an idiot in this moment if I will not be an idiot like, on that particular issue for the next minute. So, like,
Yeah.
everybody, let's be idiots in the now and be better tomorrow.
yeah. Yeah, no, that's very true. Like even if you look at Toly, he is like not afraid to be like confidently wrong about things. He'll put something out there on Twitter, someone will be like, actually this is better, blah blah blah. And he won't be like, oh, I'm so offended. He'll be like,
Yeah.
that's a better solution, right? The
Yeah.
engineer in him is like, oh, cool, we solved the problem. He's not like, oh
Yeah.
no, I was wrong, you know? And
Yeah.
I think that's a really important trait to like try not to have too much ego. Like you need to have enough ego that you're like, yeah, I can do it,
Yeah.
whatever,
I
right?
can do
But
it.
you don't
Yeah.
want to have so much that you're like, no, like I have to be the guy to solve it. We have to use my solution, whatever, right?
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
definitely like this like fine bound where you need to like check yourself. But I would also say, right, if you gave me the choice of like devs with no egos versus devs with egos, give me the dev with the ego. Because the dev with no ego, the people will just
Ah,
be like, this is bad, this is wrong. And they're like, oh no, oh, okay. Or like, they're not gonna accomplish anything, right? Whereas like the dev with the ego, he might be a bit of an asshole, but he's gonna like put something
mhm.
out there. He's gonna try to do something, right? And if he is
Yeah.
a bit of an asshole, people are gonna be like, "Hey, man, why are you being a jerk?" Like people can come along and like, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, yeah,
You don't really need to like the person to use the code. You don't need to
that's
Yeah.
like
true. That's true. That's
you
true.
don't
That's
need
true.
Linux to use this code. Like you don't need to
Yeah,
like any of us to go to our GitHub and get the code working. And honestly, I think that's a great environment. And I think it's even ties to why we called the shots like me, Wu, and FX were in called Asylum. Because we're all a bunch of assholes, honestly. Like we talk to each other so rude. Like so rude. Like so rude.
it's a
Like
term of endearment, right? It's a term of endearment.
honestly, yeah. So I think ego is a big factor. It's a big factor. You have to want to win.
Yeah. It is.
But yeah, honestly, it's been
Yeah.
great. Like, who was going to talk?
Oh no, I wasn't gonna say anything. But I was like, yeah, it's been great jamming with Dean. I didn't expect less, to be very honest. I actually expected this kind of vibe. Yeah, because like Dean is a cool person. So like
I'll
having
be,
someone.
I'll be honest, with I'm scared of you. I used to be scared of you. A good point. I
I'm not
used to be.
scary. I'm not
I,
scary, bro.
yeah, I feel like funny enough, there's definitely someone else who's going to be like looking at me and think that okay, I'm scared. But you also have to like factor the fact that people are busy and everybody has to get things done. And honestly,
Yeah,
I think the beautiful parts where you give back, whether it's with a video, an article, a repo. So even without you as a person, as a factor, you're still giving to them. So yeah,
yeah,
thank you.
yes.
That's the
Thank you
that's
so much, Dean. Yeah, thank you so much. Even beyond for like beyond hopping this or like on hopping on this like devs at the bar, like just even like generally, I can confidently say I wouldn't be writing an assembly right now if it wasn't for Dean. I genuinely I think I would say that. There's one assembly Hello World that I wrote in RISV last year, and that's just about it. But now Woo did entry points, so like we want to do CPI, generic CPIs, and all of the, so we're talking about all of this stuff. Like, how do we do it? How, like all of these opcodes. I really, really think Woo would have really loved to jump on this call. I think, contrary to what he actually thinks, he's a shy person, but I think like Woo would have been really, really, probably maybe like the next iteration, probably Woo will be here. Woo, if you're saying this, please be on the next call. Fix your skill issues and stop being and jump on the
Shout
call.
out to the woo. Shout out to the woo.
Well, even besides like interview type thing, something like this educational, like the Blue Shift Discord is always there. Like
Yeah,
people, like it should be a VC, so people should always be like it should be easy for people to interact.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're always around.
yeah,
Like ping us, the admins are
yeah,
like terminally online. So yeah, of
yeah. Okay, okay. So thank you so much, Jim, for hopping on the call.
course.
Perlin, thank you so much. The video didn't crash today, so like progress, progress. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Or probably it's Dean's aura. Maybe it's that. Maybe it's that. This aura holding up the stream. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, so thanks guys for hopping on the call. It's actually, I know that you guys have better things to do with your time, but like you guys just found time to be here. So appreciate it, appreciate it. Yeah,
Thank you so much, guys. Yeah, really, really enjoyed
yeah,
myself.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
We stop
Okay,
recording
cheers.
and
Bye. Yeah.
breaks.